Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm MK,
And I'm Courtney.
and it's Halloween. It won't be when you watch this, but it's Halloween today.
Yes.
Although I spent my Halloween taking a nap and watching football. Like, I didn't do anything Halloween related at all.
Yeah, I did, but it was until 5 this morning, so it was not necessarily today. My friend came in town from Philly, and we went to this 80s dance party. She saw us on Instagram. You saw all of our Halloween extravaganzas, and we were like, well, we'll just see how long we're gonna stay there because it started at 10, so we got there at 11, and we left at like 3:45 in the morning, like we were teenagers.
Yeah, my parents. Oh man. Okay, listen to this. My mom was out of town last week, right? So my mom got home Thursday night, but I worked Thursday night, so I didn't see her. So I was supposed to go to karaoke with my friend on Friday, but I was like, no, I'm not gonna go. I'm gonna stay home and hang out with my parents because I miss my mom because I haven't seen her in a week. Also, it was raining and cold, and I didn't want to go out. But then I get home, I take a nap after work, wake up. They're gone. They're still not home. But my mom's car is here. So I called her and I was like, your car is here, but you're not. And she was like, oh yeah, we went out to dinner. And I was like, thanks so much for letting me know. I could have gone out to karaoke, but whatever. They get home at 4 o'clock in the morning. No, they went out with their best friends. They got home at 4 o'clock in the morning.
How? I thought I was going to die.
I was like, okay. And then Saturday, my mom and I had to go to a funeral. So, like, she had to be up in the morning. Then Saturday night, she was so tired. But my grandma was sick. I was supposed to go to see a play with my grandma. My grandma was sick. So I was like, Mom, you ditched me last night. And you're going to the Bills game without me tomorrow. So come to the show with me. And she was like, I'm so tired. I go. And then she did. We saw the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime.
I saw that on your post.
It was so good. It was so good.
I bought the book recently, but I haven't read it yet.
I liked it a lot. But yeah, that was the only exciting thing I did. I saw a show.
Well, I almost died, but I staying up way too long. So I had to be at my writing group this morning at 10 a.m. I forgot. I was like, what time? Every week it's the same time. At 10 a.m. And so I was just wrapped in a blanket while I was in my group meeting the entire time. And I was like, half there. But on that note, this post comes out the first real weekend in November. Yes. But November is NaNoWriMo month, which is National Novel Writing Month. And so we're doing a kickoff at 11:30 tonight to start writing. So if anybody else is participating in writing a novel, hit us up. We can talk about like books and stuff. I'm gonna do my best. That's very exciting. That technically starts tomorrow in our real time, not in podcast time.
But what also starts in November is season 3 of Death and Aliens, where we are reviewing the cult dark comedy that is only vaguely science fiction, dead
and vaguely horror.
Yeah. The thing is, it is, but it also isn't, and I kind of like that because it still fits. I don't know what other like genre you would put it in.
Yeah. I also do not know.
It's called Dead Like Me. The first episode is very cleverly called Pilot.
Surprise! Sorry, my voice just cut out there. Get screaming all night like a teenager.
It was rated 8.4 stars, and it premiered on June 27th, 2003. Fun fact about June 27th, 2003, the number 1 song in the country was This Is the Night by Clay Aiken.
Good old Clay Aiken. Very 2003 of them.
I was like, that puts this squarely in a time in my life.
See, I never really listened to Clay Aiken. I knew him because I watched American Idol. But didn't you see him in like real life somewhere?
No,
The concert was at Monica.
Monica did, yeah. No, but okay. I was the one who stayed up. I was not allowed to, like, American Idol was on at 8:00, so I could watch it. But then the season finales was 2 hours, so I wasn't allowed to watch it because 9:00 was my bedtime. But my parents let me stay up for the Clay Aiken Ruben Studdard finale. And when Clay lost, I cried so much that I don't think I went to school the next day. Like, I think I made myself sick.
My parents also let me stay up to watch it. I also was not supposed
to. Yeah. So this puts this squarely in a time period in my life.
Yeah.
The description of the first episode says, Georgia, 18, a college dropout in Seattle, gets a filing job. She gets killed by a falling toilet seat on her first workday. 2 Grim Reapers have her join their ranks. Now, I will say, before we even get really into this, the first episode is basically 2 episodes. It was 1 hour and 15 minutes when they're normally about 41 to 43 minutes long. And it is very heavy on the exposition. The show in general does a lot of like expository narration, but this episode is heavy on that. So that's just my feelings on that. I like I said, one of my favorite shows. I love it, but it's a lot.
I do feel like it made the episode longer than it needed to be, and I know they were just trying to get it out there, the pilot, and they were like, "We're just going to hook you by throwing everything we can in there." It's like, it was good. You didn't need to do that. You could have broken it down some.
Yeah, I think like the second half of the episode where she actually gets her first assignment could have been a different episode.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Also, as a reminder, before we get too into it, MK has seen a lot of the show 1,000 years ago.
Yes.
So she's coming into it with like semi-new eyes, semi-like remembering things. I've never seen it. This is my first foray into it.
Yeah, so. I've definitely seen all of the first season. I think I've seen all of the second season. But again, I watched it when it was on TV. So, or maybe shortly after. But so like I was either in middle school or high school when I watched this. So I remember it. But that doesn't mean I remember everything.
Right.
Whereas Courtney's never seen it before. Also, unfortunately, I found out what IMDb TV means, and it means that there are commercials.
Yes. Yes, it does.
But
very threw off my watching schedule because it added more time than I expected.
Yeah. It was directed by Scott Winnant. He also executive produced the pilot with Brian Fuller, but he will not direct any more episodes. I checked. He does not direct anything else for the show. He did win 2 Emmys for directing 30-something in the 90s. He also directed episodes of My So-Called Life and an episode of The West Wing prior to this. And then since then, he's directed like Californication, Breaking Bad, Veronica Mars. What does that? And True Blood. Oh, I could not read the word blood. I was like, I have no idea what that says. True Blood. But also like he's from like a super like Hollywood-cessed family. His wife is also a writer-producer. His dad is a super famous actor in the 60s. His mom is a writer-producer. His brother is a casting director. Like, yeah.
They're all in.
There, yeah. It was written and created by Brian Fuller, who I've actually realized while taking these notes, I realized I've met him. Didn't remember because he co-created Star Trek Discovery. Mm-hmm. And I went to the pre-launch panel of Star Trek Discovery at Toronto Fan Expo before the show aired.
All right. That's interesting.
Yeah, but like he's created. What's that?
Did you talk to him?
No, I just not him by himself. Because it was like the whole cast panel.
Right.
Like I was a little more starstruck about Anthony Rapp and Jason Isaacs and Doug Jones than I was about this writer that I didn't realize that I knew who he was until after. Because he also like he has done a lot of creating fictional worlds. He obviously created Dead Like Me. He has worked a lot in the Star Trek universe and created 2 of the Star Trek spin-off shows. He also created Pushing Daisies,
which I haven't seen, but I have a couple of friends who have watched it and they loved it.
It is the fact that it only lasted 1 season is still the biggest crime to humanity. But he does it a lot. He creates these really amazing niche worlds that then get canceled because they don't have a big enough following. Like this, like Dead Like Me got canceled after 2 seasons. Pushing Daisies got canceled after a season. Then he also created the new Hannibal show. So he's at least got some meatier stuff.
But it's only lasted 3 seasons, I think.
Yeah, I know. I don't think it lasted very long. So basically, if it doesn't work, if it's not Star Trek, it's not going to take him very far, which is really unfortunate. He also wrote a couple of the really best episodes of Heroes, but he didn't help create that show. He just wrote episodes.
I feel like it's because like I haven't seen Star Trek, obviously, because I haven't seen anything it seems. But like just watching the first 2 episodes, because we are just going to spoiler alert. His writing is really well done, but it's kind of off the wall, and so like it becomes more niche. And so like I see why it didn't go very far, but it is very disappointing because it's still really well done.
Yeah, because and there's another show that he created after this one that I can't remember what it's called. Why have I lost it? Wonder Falls. He created another show called Wonder Falls, and basically like his signature trademark is super quirky, weird comedies that involve death in an unnatural version of death with a main protagonist who's a female with a traditionally male name. Like that is the first storyboard on all of his shows.
Right up my alley.
Exactly. Like the main character in Pushing Daisies, her name is Chuck. So like that is like his, if it's a weird comedy with death in a not normal way and a main character who's a girl with a boy name, Brian Fuller probably made it. That is his signature.
Good to know.
Yeah. Our main cast. Alan Muth plays George, our main character. She's really only known for doing the show. She has a couple more credits, but she really hasn't done much of anything. But she's a member of Mensa, so she's like hella fucking smart. And in 2015, she quit acting. In 2013, she quit acting so that she could, because she made a coffee company and she breeds cats.
Which coffee company?
I don't know.
Okay.
I just know in an interview she said, I don't want to act anymore. I'd rather just breed my cats and brew my coffee. And I was like, I am obsessed with that, truthfully.
I'm going to look it up for next week's episode.
Perfect. Rebecca Gayhart. Ooh, that was a weird thing in my voice. Rebecca Gayhart, she's one of those people that like when you see her face, you know her face, but she's never really been like super famous. I think one of her biggest things was Jawbreakers, which was a movie in the 90s. She did a couple other movies in the 90s. And she's also done like an F ton of random TV. She was one of my favorite characters in Ugly Betty.
I watched that for a while.
Yeah. She was the secretary at
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She's also just had like a lot of drama in her life. In 2001, she almost quit acting because she killed someone.
Well, that's very
it was vehicular manslaughter, and it got pled down in court to having been accidental, and so she had like a bunch of community service and like a big fine, but like not, and probation, but no real jail time.
Very Marky Mark of her.
Yeah. She was married to Eric Dane for 14 years. They got divorced in 2018, which I didn't realize they'd gotten divorced until I was researching this today. I was like, oh, that sucks.
That's such a bummer.
Yeah. They have 2 kiddos together. But yeah, that's Rebecca Gayhart. She plays
Betty.
Betty, thank you. I was like, I was gonna say Becky, and then I was like, no, because that's her real name. That's not it. It's
okay.
Betty.
When I heard it, I kept thinking they were saying Benny. So I was calling her Benny for like the longest time, and then I realized when I said Betty, I was like, oh wait, that's not the right name.
And then we have Callum Blue, who I am obsessed with. He played Zod on Smallville. He played Sir Andrew Jacobi in Princess Diaries 2, Royal Engagement. He was one of the knights in The Tudors. He was in Secret Diary of a Call Girl, Sarah Jane Adventures. Basically, he's been in everything I've ever watched.
Everything, right.
He's very handsome. He was in season 1, episode 5 of Grey's Anatomy. But he hates social media, refuses to have one, and has never put any part of his personal life in the public. He's mad secretive. I believe he's still single, which is
yeah, good to know. That's good information to have.
Yeah.
But I could totally see not wanting to be. I mean, I'm barely on social media, and no one cares what I do. Like
exactly. Then we have Jasmine Guy, who plays Roxy. And if you don't know who she is, I don't know where you have been, because she's like
everywhere.
Yeah. She got her start in TV as being one of the dancers on Fame. She played Whitley in A Different World, which was like one of those huge like Black comedies in the 80s and 90s. She played Grams, aka Sheila Bennett, on The Vampire Diaries.
My fave. I loved her so much on that.
She was Gemma on Grey's Anatomy, who was a recurring character. On Broadway, she was in Grease. She was in The Wiz. She was one of the first Black leads in Chicago. She's got like 3 albums. She's got 2 books. She teaches dance to underprivileged kids. Like, she is
hella talented.
Yeah, she's a queen.
Yeah.
Then the other main characters that I didn't write about are Greg Keane, who plays her dad because he has done nothing that I know, and Britt McKillop, who is her sister, who actually has done a bunch of more stuff, but she's mostly done voice work. So like, she grows up real pretty. Let me just tell you, she's beautiful now, but she mostly does voice work. Then her mom.
And she was in Trick or Treat.
She was, yes.
The horror movie we still haven't seen, but that exists.
Yeah. Her mom was played by Cynthia Stevenson, who in my mind just plays forever the oblivious mom. Because she was the mom in Agent Cody Banks, who had no idea what was going on. She was one of the moms in How to Get Away with Murder, who had no idea what was going on. Like, I just think that is her typecast in life.
It's such a sad typecast, but it's so true. But also, like, she's probably getting paid pretty well.
Yeah. I mean,
based on the show she's been in.
I mean, she got her first TV role in Cheers and has been doing comedy forever. She's super talented. It's just that in everything I've seen her in, she's played the same mom with the same like button down and the same haircut.
Yeah.
And then obviously we have our Lord and Savior, Mandy Patinkin. I didn't even bother looking at his IMDb or writing down any of his credits. My note just says perfect.
Yes.
Because
there's a little more to him than that.
There is. I mean, he was cool. Obviously, Inigo Montoya in The Princess Bride. He was in Criminal Minds. He was in the original Broadway cast of Sunday in the Park with George. What else? He might have been in Hello, Dolly at some point. I think he's played Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof in every language it's possible to sing that show in.
I mean, I knew him from Princess Bride. That was my first foray into Mandy Patinkin.
One of my favorite, not lesser known Mandy Patinkin roles was as the villain in The Adventures of Elmo and Grouchland. He has been married to the same woman for 31 years. Nope, 41 years. I keep forgetting that I'm almost 30. For 41 years, and she was the first girl he ever had a crush on, and he's been married to her all through the whole time he's been in Hollywood, and like they do TikToks together, and he's perfect. He is.
That's so sweet. I love him.
Yeah. So the episode starts with the backstory of how death entered the world, which is really weird. But basically, God, which they specify as God with a lowercase g, because this show does a really interesting way of like talking about God in heaven without talking about God in heaven. They're putting no religious emphasis on it at all. Gave death in a jar to a toad who got distracted by a frog, and then the frog broke the jar, and then death entered the world.
And I just put, how dare they blame toads and frogs for this? How dare?
I mean,
they did nothing wrong except the prison start ones, but like the rest of them didn't do anything.
I mean, they juggled a vase of death. I mean, that's brought it on themselves.
Someone gave it to them. Yeah, they gave it to the toads. I love toads and frogs, so I don't want to blame them for death.
And then we meet George. And George is the definition of apathy.
Yes. When I saw her, I just put, oh, the 2000s. They apologized for people looking disappointing, saying they're unattractive. I'm like, she's not unattractive.
No.
She looks plain. They didn't put makeup on her, and they dressed her very average.
Yeah.
And they were like, she's the worst. And I was like, what? No, very 2000s.
Yeah, it was. But she was like, I'm sorry to disappoint you, except I'm not really sorry because I've mastered the art of not giving a shit. And I was like, yes, that is the vibe of the whole show. Like,
absolutely.
And she's trying to get a job at a temp agency, but she doesn't really want to. But she also doesn't really want to do anything, like ever.
Right.
And we meet Dolores Herbig, who is the manager at this temp agency and is everything that I hate about customer service.
Yeah.
And I have a note because this is how dated this show is. They're talking about if your ability to use Microsoft Office, and she's like, I know how to use Lotus, and I go, I don't even know what Lotus is.
I don't either. I was like, well, that's not great for you. Try again.
Yeah. And then we go home and we meet George's dysfunctional family. Like I said, this episode is just hella exposition. So there's like some funny moments in these scenes, but like plot wise, they're just like, here are all the characters that you need to know. In her dysfunctional family, we meet her mom, who is a bitch.
Bless her.
And her dad, who I don't know how I feel about her dad.
I don't have any feelings about him right now. He hasn't like done a whole lot of anything. He's just kind of there. And
then her 10-year-old little sister, who she pretends is invisible. Oh, Reggie.
I laughed so hard when I saw that. Like, what?
Yeah. That's the other thing. Like, the special effects in the show are not bad, but they're also very 2000s. Like, they didn't age terribly, but they're like, okay.
They're just extra cheesy.
Yes.
Yes.
And then she goes to bed and says the only thing, like, she's just still waxing poetic about her terrible, sad sack of a life. And she says, do you know how hard it is to be like cresting on the edge of adulthood with no idea what you're doing? And I was like, girl, I am fully living that.
100%. 100%.
Her mom wakes her up violently the next morning and was like, well, you got a temp job. You have to go to work. Beggars can't be choosers. You're going to go to work. You're going to get paid. You're going to move out of my house.
Okay, bye now.
And then we have a very painful moment of foreshadowing, which is less painful by the fact that we're being narrated and told it's painful foreshadowing of her mom's last words ever to her is it's going to be your funeral. I really wish that there hadn't been narration in that moment, because some of the irony and the humor is lessened by the narration.
Yeah.
So she goes to work at this place that I can only imagine is what hell looks like.
I absolutely think it's what hell looks like. And I was looking at it and I was like, it's like portrayed as corporate America everywhere. And I'm like, I've worked for corporate. Like, it doesn't look like this anymore. And those computers, God bless.
Oh yeah, no, but I mean, obviously we're looking at something that's almost 20 years old, but also like just being in an office, like a cubicle office, like I would rather kill myself.
It made me think very much of Office Space, the movie.
Yeah. Oh, and then, here, even I know it made me want to kill myself because my note said, honestly, if I was her and I wasn't about to die, I'd just kill myself.
There's no telling what she would have done. We didn't give her enough time to figure it out.
Yeah. So then she goes on her lunch hour. That is only 35 minutes. Which
is illegal. If you give them an hour, you have to let them take an hour.
But also, you just call it a lunch hour, like, even when it's not an hour. I mean, my lunch is only 40 minutes.
Mine's only 30. They expect me to go get food and come back in 30 minutes and eat it. Spoiler alert, I do not. I take longer than 30 minutes most days.
I just don't take a lunch. I end up working through my lunch every day. Because, I mean, I also work after I leave work and in the middle of the night and always.
Me too, that's why I take longer.
So then she's on her lunch break, walking down the street, and some weird guy starts touching her and talking to her.
I was just like, why is this guy being so creepy?
Well, because he's taking her soul.
Yeah, which is creepy. And he didn't have to do it that creepily.
Yeah, I don't. So then basically the next 40 minutes of the show are just a series of scenes of Mandy Patinkin describing what the afterlife is like in this world to us. Mandy plays Rube, the boss. I adore him, and I wish that he would come work with me and call me Peanut every day. Basically, in this fictional universe, when you die, there are Grim Reapers there to remove your soul before you die so that you don't actually feel or experience painful deaths. And to also help your body or your soul move on to its final resting place. Only sometimes you go to a good place, sometimes you go to a bad place. They don't really call it heaven or hell. They just...
Well, they did the one time because she said,
am I going to hell? And he said, you're not that interesting. basically, in this world, you either are good enough to go to heaven, or you are bad enough to go to hell, or you're not very interesting or exciting, and you have to do some menial job in between. One of which is a Grim Reaper. There are also the Grim Reapers work like a corporation, and there are different divisions, and they cover different kinds of death. And our Reaper crew that we are following in the show covers is the Department of External Forces. So they don't deal with anyone who dies of diseases. They just deal with murder, suicide, and accidents, such as having a spaceship toilet break through orbit and land on you.
Exactly. Because what is a better way to die?
Which is surprisingly important later in the show.
Right. It seems like it will be.
Yeah. So they go to her funeral, and we see her family like dealing with it, and we see that her sister is clearly not taking this very well, and that her dad may or may not be gay. Because in our introduction to her dysfunctional family, we find out that her dad is having an affair. At the funeral, one of his students comes and gives him a very uncomfortable hug. Only it's a male student, and George is very confused.
Yes.
That's all the information we have on this at this time.
So I had a question for you. If you could, would you go to your own funeral?
I think so.
You think so? I think I would be too curious not to.
Yeah.
Too many questions, like.
Honestly, I think I would, just to like know who bothered to show up. Which is, but also like, I'd go to like make sure that someone's taking care of my sisters or like my mom. Like I'd make sure that like someone was actually like helping them, because my mom, if I were to die before my mom, which
I like how you assume you're like the first to go under his family.
Like if I were to die before my mom is the kind of person who deals with being upset by overworking and stressing and planning, and I do not want her to be responsible for that. Like I know that that's how she copes, but I would also want to make sure that someone is making sure that she's not going crazy doing that. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then after Rube explains death, we go on like a walk and talk of meeting all of our other characters and finding out some more expository information about death. We find out that you don't get paid to be a Grim Reaper, so some people still get jobs, like Roxy, the traffic cop.
Poor Roxy.
Or some people, like Mason, just steal shit off of dead bodies.
I mean, look, if I was a Grim Reaper, they're already dead. If it's in their wallet, it's not really going to their family, probably. Who's going to miss it? And I'm doing a job and I'm not getting paid for it, especially if they're the person that I had to take their soul and put them up. Like, it's basically their payment to me. They don't need it anymore.
Right. Then we find out about gravelings, which are these weird, creepy demon creature things that come and cause death. The Reapers don't cause anything. They just have to be there to like get the souls from one place to another, but the gravelings often cause the death.
They're creepy little monkey looking things.
Yes. And then because George is now a Reaper, people can see her and her reactions to being dead but not dead. So awkward.
So I do want to tell you, when she was I found this fun fact because my brain spiraled. when she was at the funeral and she walked through the door and it was like that misty effect or whatever. I was like, this effect looks really familiar. And at first I was like, this kind of looks like something they would do in Charmed or something else. So I looked it up and I was like, are there any crossover between Charmed and Dead Like Me visual effects team?
Yeah.
The answer is no. There is in the new Charmed, but I haven't watched it yet. So I just
I haven't either.
But there is crossover between Dead Like Me and Hemlock Grove. Andrew Carr did visual effects for both shows.
All right.
Fun fact of the day.
Yeah. I did not look up the visual effects team.
I did not intentionally, but my brain went on a train and I followed it.
Sure.
So now you know.
Then they also find out that as a Grim Reaper, you are dead but not dead. And they don't have superpowers. Like there's no like phasing through things or walking through buildings or being able to fly. Like they just have to like get around like normal people with like cars and buses and things. And they also need somewhere to live. So they need somewhere to live, which often means that they take a dead person's house.
I want you to know this is such an unfair job. They're just like, they don't get to choose it. They don't get any money. They don't get a place to live. And they have to figure out how to use a bus system while they're dead and dead. Like, this is insane. This is so not fair.
Yeah. George very much feels that way as well.
Yeah.
So Mason is taking her to find a place to live and kind of showing her the ropes of stealing from dead people. But then it turns out that Betty already claimed the apartment. So then she has to go find them a new one. And she fucks up and goes to an apartment where the guy isn't dead yet.
I lost it when they were just like, oh, I thought this was a 7. I thought this was a 1, it's a 7. And they're like, okay, well, we'll be back next week. I was like, what a guy.
So then they have their every morning they have breakfast at the Waffle House to get their assignments, and this will continue for the whole show. They have their morning breakfast where they get their assignments of who they have to reap that day at the Waffle House. And when it's a good day, Rue buys banana bonanzas for everybody. And so George has to have her first day of observation hours. So she goes with Mason to the bank. Now, this bank scene could have been a whole episode by itself because it is bananas.
Truly. My note is this bank robbing scene is absurd.
Oh, it is absurd. And that is the level of humor of the show. It is. So they're trying to figure out, because when they find out who they're going to reach, they don't get a full name. They just get initials and a time and a place. And then they have to go. Which makes sense because they're not getting involved. So they go to this bank and they're waiting. They have no idea who of all these people at the bank is going to get killed. And somehow, in the midst of them waiting at the bank, a guy comes in to rob the bank, and then he gets thwarted by a woman whose husband works at the bank and is cheating on her, and she brought all of her kids and a gun.
Right. The gun was in the baby's car seat, because that's where you keep guns.
Then she accidentally shoots no one.
Right.
But while she's shooting something, I forget what happens that gets the fire department sent there.
She shoots straight up and it goes through the ceiling.
Right.
And and then it all fell on everyone and they started, I think it was just 911.
The ceiling falls, so then the fire department comes. Yeah. And then there's this one guy who's there to cash a check. Now, the whole time, when they first get to the bank, George watches the graveling and says that the person who dies is going to slip on a banana peel. And Mason says that is quite silly, not likely to happen, and the gravelings don't always get it right. So then all of this nonsense is happening. Still no one is dead. Then this poor kid who's there to cash his check, his name's Brendan, he slips on the banana peel, lands with his head in a rotating door that then closes on his head.
No blood. Zero
No blood. Of course not. There's no blood in this show. That's not how we do things here. Even when George got exploded by a toilet, there was like one line of blood across her shoe, so you could see she was dead.
Right.
Like,
but this Brendan guy, I identified with him so hard. He was rocking his like punk look, and then he dies and he looks at his check, and he's like, "This is so unfair. I just got paid." And I was like,
he was not upset that he was dead. He was upset that he died on payday.
I would also be upset if I died on payday. Like, for real.
At least kill me when I'm broke.
Right, exactly. Like, what else do I have going? Like, I'm just sitting here.
So George gets his apartment. Benefits of killing someone: take their apartment.
Yes. And, you alone?
Yeah. And his apartment is exactly what you would expect when you look at him. Like, if you haven't watched the show, which you should watch the show if you're listening to us talk about it, but if you haven't watched the show, picture Matthew Lillard in Scream without the murder. And that is Brendan.
That's so funny. But I haven't watched Scream yet. But Matthew Lillard, just spread him out across his rolls and picture it, and you'll find one that's fitting.
Yep. And then George goes and visits her parents at a garage sale because she finds out that she doesn't look like herself to alive people anymore. And she gets really weird and asks her mom a lot of stupid questions. And then it's the next day. She gets her first job. Mind you, this is all still the same episode. And her first job is on a train. She has to watch this person get on a train, and whoever sits in that seat, that's her next victim, blah, blah, blah. Turns out it's a little kid.
I just put, how dare they make this her first soul? I was like, it's very Shakespeare of Mandy to give her to turn a comedy into a tragedy for her.
Right. It's like, first job, you got to learn the hard way that you don't have any control over who's dead. Child. Now, the child is played by Jodelle Farland, who apparently just plays kids who die in everything.
Trauma?
Yeah.
Trauma?
She played Bree Tanner in the Twilight series movie, which is the one who is the kid who gets killed by Victoria and becomes part of the vampire army. I'm pretty sure her character died when in the episode of Grey's Anatomy that she was in. She is in like a ton of horror movies. Pretty sure that she also died in her episode of Supernatural. Like, basically, she's just a child actor who gets murdered a lot.
So bad.
It is. But she was in Big Fat Liar too. I don't think she died in that one.
Nobody died in that one. Of course she didn't die.
And so George decides she's just going to not kill her. Or not. Or no, she's going to save her from.
Yeah, I probably would also feel that way.
Yeah, she's going to save her from the train accident that's supposed to kill her. And
but before that happens, there's this guy on the train who won't stop talking to her. And the way to get him to stop, she just looks at him and she's like, I can't talk to you right now. I'm praying. And I was like, I just want to tell everyone that from now on. Like, anytime they bother me,
Yes.
I'm just going to tell them I can't talk to them right now because I'm praying.
So she saves the little girl from the train accident. And then Rube meets her and is like, excuse me? No. And then she goes back and she takes her soul. Now, here's the thing. The little girl, she doesn't kill the little girl. She just takes her soul. The little girl was basically already dead anyway because of the physical trauma of that train accident.
Right.
But my sister happened to be over when I watched this episode for the first time. And she goes, now, this is what I don't understand. And I agree with her take on it. Everybody's fine. They're sitting at this fire. You touch a little girl, she collapses and dies, and then you just walk off into the woods and nobody suspects anything?
I had the same thought. I was like, because at first I thought she was like, they were sitting off to the side, like out in the woods somewhere, and she just did it. And then I was like, oh, they're going to find her body and everybody's going to freak out. Yeah. No, they're sitting in the middle with everyone.
Yeah.
I was like, what? What is going on?
No. And then she takes her to her version of heaven, which is an amusement park. And it's very cute.
In the woods, which is my version of a nightmare. But that's fine. To each their own.
I mean, but it wasn't really there. It was like a transport.
I know. And they did play Que Sera, which was an excellent song choice.
Yes. It was beautiful.
Excellent.
And that is the end of the first episode.
Did you keep up? Because a lot happened.
Yeah. And I kind of went through a lot of it really fast because plot-wise, it was just exposition.
Unfolding, yeah.
Yeah. Truthfully, if you don't watch anything else of this episode, just find the bank robbery scene.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
And it explains everything.
Basically.
You need to know.
Yeah. Trivia. George's wish is that she could just wish it into the cornfield, which she says at some point about being a reaper. She just wants to wish it into the cornfield, is a reference to Jerome Bixby's short story, It's a Good Life, in which a little boy with godlike powers whisks an entire town into an alternate reality and holds the population in a paralysis of fear. Wish it into the cornfield was what his mother pleaded with Anthony to do to the creatures and the people that he had killed. The story was adapted for the original Twilight Zone in 1959 with Bill Mumy and reimagined for Twilight Zone in 1983. It's a Twilight Zone skit.
I may have seen that, then I've seen some of the movie.
I have seen that one.
I don't remember what they were.
The show takes its title from John Howard Griffin's book Black Like Me, in which the white author darkens his skin to pass as a black man, and then in the show, the dead are passing themselves off as living.
Mm-hmm.
After being assigned to an extremely menial job, George says, as the day progressed, I began to suspect that Dolores Herbig, as in her big fat ass, was the devil and she'd condemned me to hell. In the show Reaper in 2007, Christine Willis, who played Dolores Herbig, plays a demon who collects the souls of those who escaped from hell.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
The little girl from
demonic.
No, she's only demonic in the sense that she's so happy it's creepy.
Right.
The little girl from the train sees an amusement park as her great beyond, and George had asked her about parks before the accident. They talked about Disneyland before the accident, and then her heaven, her great beyond, was
basically that.
In George's opening monologue, she quips whether the world would be better off if frogs had just stuck to hawking beer, referring to the famous Budweiser commercial of the time, which featured 3 large frogs croaking Budweiser.
Yes. I'm familiar with that.
Me too. And then show cast members Callum Blue, Greg Keane, and Christine Wells all at one point guest starred on the TV series Smallville, as did guest star of this episode, Jo Dow Furland.
And the main girl is in the NXIVM cult from Smallville.
What?
Did you not know that? The main girl from Smallville is in the NXIVM cult.
Oh, yeah, no, her. I knew that. I thought you were saying the main girl from this show was in a cult.
No, she's not. She's fine, probably.
Yeah, no, she quit to make coffee and
Right.
cats.
So I would guess she's fine still.
Yeah. So that is our trivia for the first episode. Courtney,
Yeah.
is there anyone that you would like to punch after this episode?
I know we talked about we were going to do this, then I completely did not think about it. No, can you go first? Who do you want to punch?
I want to punch her mom.
I also want to punch her mom. But you know who I want to punch? I want to punch the guy behind the desk of the temp job who was such a jerk to her about the files. That's who I want to punch.
Oh, the one who couldn't believe her when she dropped a file down an elevator shaft?
Yes. I don't care that it's her fault. He was very mean to her.
I can't believe that she actually dropped the file down an elevator shaft either.
So I'm paranoid of doing something like that. Like, I used to live, but the thing is, like, in my old building, the elevator, the bottom floor was just the basement. And so, like, I could just go down to the basement if I dropped something. So I was always so terrified I was going to drop my keys down it for no reason. Never have I done that. No. But I'm always nervous I'm going to.
That's fair.
So it was confirmed. Thank you, Dad, like me.
Yeah. And
that's one punch.
What is there? Who is your MVP of the episode?
I like Callum Blue. What's his name?
Oh, Mason. Yeah.
Mason. I like Mason because I agree with the way he handles things, even if they're a little less than correct. I guess they're a little off the charts, but I'm here for it.
I also love Mason. My favorite is Rube though, because he goes back and forth from being like kind and fatherly to also like being an asshole because he kind of has to. Like there's one scene where what he says it totally would not be able to be on TV today. 20 years ago was apparently a very different time, but she's like freaking out about how she can't believe that the girl can see her, and he's like, okay, yes, she can see you. No, just order your food before she thinks you're retarded.
I know. I was like, oh, this was 20 years ago. What the heck?
The thing was, I laughed, but I also laughed in a way where like I like spit out my drink because I couldn't believe that he just said that. I couldn't
believe it happened.
Like, yes.
What? Like, I don't think you're supposed to say it like that.
But also, like, I feel like I feel like that's something like my dad or my uncle would say to me if I was being that dumb. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
So I appreciate that.
The times they have changed.
Yes, it's crazy.
But
yeah, no, but it is crazy what things you could get away with on TV and what you could.
I know.
But also, what channel did this air on? Is my other question. Showtime. Okay, because I was gonna say there's a lot of swearing. There's a lot of swearing in it, so it had to have been on something. Yeah. So that is the pilot episode of Dead Like Me. It's a long one. I promise the rest of them are not that long.
Which means our episodes are going to probably be a little shorter. Too.
Yeah. Unless for some reason we just like get really into one episode or something.
Off the rails. Who knows? There's no telling what's going to happen.
Yeah. But if you are excited about the new show, or you have questions or comments or concerns, feedback, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Death and Aliens. You can follow me at EMKAY_superstar.
You can follow me at CECloud13.
And we will see you, I would say next week, but really the next episode, which is on Wednesday, yeah.
Wednesday-ish.
Probably Wednesday.
Okay, great.
Okay. All right. Now, bye.
Bye.